Jack, how is this? How is this happening? That normal, logically thinking people who truly care, people who are, you know, at work, they're making good decisions. But when it comes to this religion, it seems like nothing that you can tell them that will make any effect on their critical thinking. It's like the whole critical thinking is being thrown out of the window the moment you mention religion. They can think critically anywhere else. They can think at work, they can think at home, they can think with talking to their neighbors. But the moment you mention religion, it's like the entire critical thinking is out the window. What the heck? How is that even possible? And I thought about it for a long time. How is it that people who are very smart, some of them university educated, some of them are very intelligent, and when it comes to religion, they are incapable of seeing black and white patterns that everybody else sees? It's interesting how when we wake up, there is this process of, oh, there is one thing wrong, and then it starts this domino effect. We almost like we're allowing our brain to go that route. And it's scary. It's really scary because the consequences are really dire. But there is a moment of, there's like a tipping point when it just it builds up, builds up, builds up, and then there's a straw that breaks the camel's back, and all of a sudden everything starts to make sense. You start seeing through this BS almost in any paragraph of the Watchtower. It's at the beginning, it's like maybe 5%, 10%, but there is a moment when there's like 20%, 40%, 50-50, and then it tips the scale, and then after it's like, oh my gosh, I just see everything now. I see all the manipulation, I see all the BS that is happening. And previously you were going to the meetings, you were going to you were preaching to others, you were trying to get other people to join, and you couldn't see it, and yet the information didn't change. Many of you are thinking, oh, you know what, the organization changed so much, so many changes, and it's not the same religion that I joined. Yes, there were some changes, but you know what, grab an older publication, older book, and start reading today with the mindset that you have right now, and you'll see that the BS is almost identical. There's very few little differences, but the mindset and the way of thinking is almost the same. So the question is, how come now you can see things and before you didn't? See, there's one thing and one value only that actually stops the way people think. What do I mean by that? Every decision that you have ever made in your life is based on two things and two things only. It's like your two legs that you're standing on. One is your beliefs, and the other one is your values. The beliefs is whatever you believe is true. Okay, that's one leg you're standing on. And then the other one is your values. One of those two, when it's broken, then you're gonna fall. But there is one value, and when it comes to decisions, every decision that we make, it's nothing else than evaluation of values. I'll repeat this again because it's extremely important. Every decision that you have ever made in your life, it's nothing else is that you evaluate your values. What is the most important for you to experience, to feel in your life? That's what you're gonna go for. And the values are different for different people. This is why we have such huge variety of people and different personalities. However, there is one value that is the highest above all for Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's what stops them from thinking. That's what stops them from researching. That's what stops them from doing anything outside of the box. What is it? Loyalty. Loyalty, as they call it, to Jehovah, loyalty to God. But we all know that loyalty is to the organization. They basically equaled God with organization. Whatever the organization says is God's words, to the point where I even heard one person said that if you disagree with governing body, you are disagreeing with Jehovah God himself. So it's equal. That would use words like, well, if Jehovah is trusting his faithful and discreet slave, shouldn't you? And one of the number one reasons why people get disfellowshipped for apostasy is based on their belief about governing body. So if they value their own opinion above the governing body's opinion, then they're automatically labeled apostate. See, loyalty to the organization is number one value, not the truth, not love. Those things are way, 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 way down on the value uh, hierarchy. But the number one is loyalty. And when you think about it, if loyalty is number one value, how are you going to make decisions? When you come across a moment when your own mother is saying something that it's outside of their box, and you are loyal, not to your mother, not to the person that you love, but you're loyal to the organization because you think that equals loyalty to God, then how are you going to make a decision? You're going to spy on your own mother. You're going to say, oh, no, no, no. We have to be loyal to the organization. I know myself. I had this best friend. We were super close. We did everything together. Me and him working together every single day. And one day he's telling me that, all the girls that he slept with. And I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I have to be loyal to Jehovah. And I'm telling him, listen, you got to go report yourself to the elders. If you don't, I will, because this sin now entered me. And if I'm covering up your sin, then during Armageddon, God will come destroy me. I'm like, I can't have that. Loyalty to the organization was higher than loyalty to my friend. And I think it would have happened the same if he was even my family member, my own brother. I think I would have said the same things. Why? Because my mind was programmed to be loyal to organization first. That was number one. You're going to be judged based on the loyalty, because they'll tell you, okay, it doesn't matter what you have done. You could be a pioneer. You could be a Bethelite. You could do whatever you want for 80 years of your life. And when you're 92, you say something that shows disloyalty to the organization, and you will be disfellowshipped, or whatever you did before means nothing. Whoever will last till the end will be saved. This is a very common scripture that they use, and they're saying you have to last, which basically means you have to be loyal. Where is this loyalty dangerous? And this is why I want to talk about this. Where is this value, if you call it a value, dangerous? I find loyalty to be actually extremely dangerous, because if you're more loyal to somebody else or to the institution, then if the institution makes a mistake, you're going to make the mistake. You're giving the critical thinking all your personal values. You will violate your personal values if number one is your loyalty to an institution, to somebody else, to a form of authority in your head. If that person is an authority and you have to be loyal to them, you will violate your own values. You will violate your own beliefs just to uphold this, because it's now you're attaching actually your identity to that value, because you are a Jehovah's Witness. And there's one more thing that they have done. They turn every Jehovah's Witness, before you even join, into becoming a teacher. Now, for some of you might think, big deal. But the difference is gigantic. See, when you're, I don't know, a Catholic, Protestant, or I don't know, any other religion, and you just go there and you just listen, it's like going to school, listen to the biology, listen about, I don't know, evolution, or listen about creation, anything like this, and then you just don't resonate with this, you leave the classroom and then you forget about it. But when you have to teach it, it's totally different. It becomes part of who you are. This is now what you represent. And it goes into the deepest part of you, because you are representing these teachings. This is why it goes so deep into your subconscious mind. With loyalty, with your identity, it's attached together. And now, any deviation from this, even if it's completely illogical, you will defend it. No question about it. This is what you have programmed in your mind. This is why it's so difficult to break free from this, because the moment somebody questions it, it's like they're questioning your identity, who you are as a person. At the same time, it's an act of disloyalty. If you do research outside of what the Watchtower is telling you, automatically you're committing an act of disloyalty. You're supposed to be loyal. Even if it's illogical, they tell you straight out. Your salvation will depend on loyalty towards the governing body, because the governing body during the Great Tribulation will give you some sort of directions of how to survive the Armageddon. And your act of loyalty, even if they tell you things that are completely illogical, you have to obey. And this obedience is number two value. Number one is loyalty. Number two is obedience. And if you have your values that set up in your brain, guess what? Logic is not the top. The truth is not the top. Critical thinking is not the top. And if you're making decision based on your values and you're evaluating the situation, what should I do? My brain is telling me this is whole BS, but my mind is basically telling me, no, 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 it doesn't matter what you think. You're not supposed to rely on your own understanding. Your heart is treacherous. You're supposed to be loyal. And if you follow this, guess what? It doesn't matter that it's illogical. You will follow the values. This is why it's so difficult for people who leave the organization after they wake up, because they don't know how their values are arranged. They're like, okay, before I supposed to be loyal, before I supposed to be obedient, and now who am I? Who am I as a person? My own personality is all messed up. I don't know who I am, because your identity is gone, your values are gone, your beliefs are gone, and who you are as a person crumbled. This is why it's so difficult for them to put the pieces back together. But believe me, if you violate your own values for the sake of authority figure, like the Watchtower, oh boy, you will really have a hard time rebuilding yourself, because you don't know where to get the values from, especially because they were demonized the outside world by saying all the other values are bad. If you put anything above this, it's bad. You could be a doctor looking for a cure for cancer, and you will actually find the cure, and you will give it for free to everybody around the world, okay? As your top value is to save humanity. That is what you want to do. They will say, you just wasted your life. You just wasted your time. Why? Because you just helped people temporarily. They will all die eventually. You didn't save them. You postponed their death. We are doing something for eternity. This is about paradise on earth, when people will not die and not have to worry about cancer. So who cares that you have achieved this? You're supposed to be loyal. If you are loyal, you will be saved and others. That is the top value. Think about it for a second. When people have a choice between living or dying, is life a top value for them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They have a choice between taking the blood transfusion and increasing your chances of survival, or not take the blood transfusion, decrease your chances of survival, but at least you will remain loyal. If that is the case, your brain will say, you know what, you got to do whatever it takes to survive, because that's what your subconscious mind is programmed for survival. But somebody instilled this loyalty in your brain as top value. You will violate your own gut feeling, your own even instincts, because you want to uphold that loyalty. And they brag about this. I'm not kidding. They even printed out a wake with a whole bunch of examples of young children who have died because they refused to take blood transfusion. And they're using this as a great example of loyalty. They remained loyal in the time of trials, in the time of their death. This is why I believe that loyalty is extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous because people turn off their brains and they remain loyal to somebody who could be very abusive, but they don't see it. They're completely blind to it. See, that belief that you have to be loyal and that top value loyalty, it could be anywhere. You could transfer this into your own home when your own husband or your wife is very abusive towards you. They abuse you, they cheat on you, they lie to you. But if the top value is, I must be loyal, then all your life you're going to experience this abuse because you're going to allow it. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They allow the governing body to abuse them in many forms because that's not their top value. Is they don't respect themselves. They respect the governing body a lot more than themselves. When you start switching your values, and you got to literally sit down and write your values down. This is something that I do when I coach people. It's extremely powerful experience when we actually sit down, write down all your values, and we try to figure out which one is the most important for you right now. If you don't do this consciously, the environment will shape your values. And if the environment will shape your values, you will not make conscious decisions. You will react to the environment. You will not act upon it because you don't know what your top values are. You never actually put them on piece of paper and you never evaluated which one is first, second, third. You don't know the sequence and order of your values. You're just reacting at the moment. But if you put your values where they are, okay, then you start making decisions based on what you believe is true and what you believe is right and wrong. See, when people open up a company, they start up a company, one of the first things that they have to do, if they don't do it, the company will not survive even first year. They have to establish a vision. They have to establish a mission for that company. That's number one, before they even start anything. And number two, they have to establish values. What are the values for that company? If they don't establish those two things, believe me, they will not last 1 year. And this is why 50% of the companies that get registered don't even survive 1 year. And 96% of the companies do not survive 10-year period of time. They don't have a clear vision and they don't have clear values. For a company, one of the top values should be what? Safety. Number one, safety of your employees, for everybody. That should be a top value. And then they come up with other values, which is like hardworking, honesty, and so on and on. But they actually put those values on paper because they want to make sure which one is first. If you work for a company where you see that number one value is profit and safety is at the bottom, run. Run. It's not a good company to work for, because you will see that you might pay a really high price working for the company and their values are messed up. For Jehovah's Witnesses, the same thing. What do you think are the top values for the organization? And you will see that your values today are not aligned with theirs, and this is why you don't fit there. If your values would be aligned with them, you would be happy there. You would be happily go back, even if logically you don't believe in some of the doctrines, but you would see that the values are lined up, you would go. This is why many people don't believe what the priest is saying from the platform, but they still belong to the church and they still go every Sunday because their values are aligned. The values for community, the values for love, the values for belonging, their values are aligned, and they like going to church because that's where they feel like they belong somewhere and people feel appreciated because their values are aligned. But with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's so difficult. When people wake up, when people disagree, it's extremely difficult because the values are not aligned. Because when you go there, it's always obey, obey, obey. Be loyal no matter what, even if it's illogical. And it's being driven so much when you're listening to this. It's like, oh, I can't do this no more. And now that you are out, evaluate your values. What is the most important for you? If you don't do this consciously, oh boy. See, I tell you what, when I had to do this for myself, I change my values every year. Every year, people are trying to figure it out. What am I going to accomplish next year? I don't care too much about that. I care about my values. How are my values aligned with who I am, who I want to be? How are they aligned with my vision? Because if they're not aligned with my vision, guess what? You're going to procrastinate and then you're going to sabotage because you're going to do 2 steps forwards and 3 steps back. So I want to make sure my values are aligned with the vision that I have. And if they're not, I change them. I adjust them. So one of the top value for me, it had to be life. Top value is life and health. Because I know that if you don't have that, there is nothing you can do. Or if you're dead, what are you going to do? If you're sick, if somebody has to care for you, what are you going to do? But that's not a top value for Jehovah's Witnesses, is it? Think about it. They would give up their life. They would give up their health easily. They'll give up their mother. They give up their father. They give up their family because their values are different. Loyalty, obedience, subordination, those things are top values. But now for me, I got to say, okay, if number one is life, what is number two? And I realized it has to be authenticity. I have to be who I am. I cannot pretend to be somebody else. I cannot be one person here, another person here, and have two faces. That's not who I am as a person. I have to be authentic. And if some people will like it, some people will not like it. Some people will love me for it, some people will hate me for it. But I have to be authentic. I tried to be inauthentic as a Pimo. It was the hardest thing in my life. I thought I'm gonna kill myself. It was really bad. It drove me to depression. It drove me to the point where I felt like there's no point of living. So I know I have to be authentic. That's number 2 value for me. I have to stay alive and I have to be authentic. Number 3 value for me is love. But love is not above authenticity. I tell you why. For some people, love is number 1. For me, I have to be authentic first, because if I'm authentic, I'm going to find people who will love me for who I am. But if I put love first and authenticity second, very often people will love who I portray to be, or people will love me for who I claim to be. And I, would come with a decision making of, should I tell the person the truth? Should I be authentic with that person? Or should I downplay it? Or should I lie to them? And people will choose lie to their loved ones because love is above authenticity. So they will manipulate things in order not to lose the person that they love. For me, it's like I have to be authentic because I want people around me who love me for who I am. So I put authenticity first, and then life, authenticity, and love. Okay, those 3 are the very top values. And I tell you, that one switch of values changes everything in my life, because now I very often I'm with people who put love above authenticity. Very often, my wife is like that. She values love a lot more than authenticity. So she would talk to me authentically, but we're in a group setting, and very often, if she disagrees with somebody, she would stay quiet. She would not voice her opinion because she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, because love is number 1 for her in the connection. I would voice my opinion. I don't force my opinion on others, but I would voice it. Especially if I see that somebody else's opinion could harm somebody, then I would really speak up. But what does it do? That some people don't like me. Some people will voice that, oh, I don't like this guy because this is what he believes, this is what he says, and there is a difference between me and somebody else. But my wife is the type of a person who never wants to hurt anybody. So there is a difference, and I understand this about her. And I'm not trying to change her values. I'm not trying to tell her, hey, you have to switch this. But she's aware of it, and she's fine with it. This is who she is, and I love her for who she is. We actually balance each other out in many circumstances where she's like, hey, maybe you should have mentioned that. Like, I know you're right, but you're actually hurting the other person by saying that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Maybe it wasn't right for me to say that at that moment, especially in their home when we were guests. Next time I'm going to be more careful, right? And then and vice versa. Very often my wife felt really bad. It's like, oh, I should have told them this, but I just chickened out. I was worried about their opinion, right? Because the values are different. But now that you're aware of it, you get to decide, how are your values? What will be number 1? What will be number 2? Because you will make decisions based on how you evaluate situations based on your values. What is number 1? What is number 2? What is number 3? I do this process with people that I coach, and believe me, it is the biggest breakthrough in their life when they're going through this, and it's like, oh, holy crap. Now I know why I wanted to go to the gym and I never do. Now I know why I'm overeating, and I know why I'm making this decision. I know I decided to maybe even cheat on my husband, or why I decided to leave this marriage, or why I decided to go to school or not. You will know why you're making decisions. And if you shift your values, if you shift your order and sequence of which one is first, which one is second, you will become the person you want to become, instead of having conflicts all the time. When you procrastinate and auto-sabotage, you will be aligned, and you'll be like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and then your values will support you. If you want to know more about how to evaluate your values and how to put them in order and sequence, please contact me. Just go to futurefreedom.ca, click on Talk to Jack, and then we will talk about this. I will be more than happy to help you out with this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.